bike won't start. So that is that. Tim is off in some stranger's car. Trying to fix the problem. Hey everyone, welcome back to Notier's Frontiers Diaries. Today we are in Bryce Canyon, Utah, one of our favorite places on the planet, and it's simply gorgeous. And in this episode we're going to talk about something terrible that happened on the way out west over here. You might remember in the last episode we had some problems with the motorcycle, as in our bearings blew up. We were coming up from Georgia through Tennessee and into Illinois, and they just went kaboom, basically.
Yeah. But we got them fixed, and I was still having this like literal weird ghost issue of the bike just wouldn't start sometimes for no good apparent reason, and it was bleeding. It was burning oil or something that I wasn't sure as well. We're prepping the bike to go to the overland events out west. We wanted to leave tomorrow, just in case. My bike has been dying on me. I don't know if it's stalling out because of the short. It's also been burning some oil, but I changed the oil to some heavier oil. And I wanted just to check my air box just to make sure she was all right. She was, but as I was taking the tank off, something always happens to me. And this time, something happened to me. It's the little pressure for the main gas line that lets the gas squirt out. So if you get real close, you can see that once this pushes down on the sensor from the tank, that's when the gas comes out. I wish I could successfully do something without something going horribly astray.
I feel like that's just motorcycle work in general.
And at least I'm in a garage in Illinois, not
exactly.
in
the middle of nowhere on the side of the road. Yeah.
I just didn't have a very good overall positive vibe about the next step of our adventure.
Yeah, and I was fine. I mean, you got the bearings fixed. You went to your friend Aaron, and that was
Thank you, Duke
really great. Yes, he fixed the bearings, and so I was like, all right, it's fine. You know, it had a couple problems not starting when we were in Florida, but it had been fine pretty much all the way up into Illinois, and I was just blissfully unaware, but you had that deep down feeling, didn't you?
I wanted to leave as soon as possible because I felt that something bad was going to happen just somewhere deep down in my soul, so I wanted to give us enough time to go. So if we got like an hour, or not an hour, but a day outside of Loveland, Colorado, we can try to figure out the best way of getting it the rest of the way.
Right, because our next destination was the Overland Expo.
Dun, dun,
we
dun.
had about a week to get there, which normally would have been plenty of time, but you still had that feeling like, all right, we need to get to Colorado because we have this event that we need to be at, and we should leave as early as possible just because you felt that something bad was going to happen.
Yeah, and when we were back in Tanzania, I think it was, we'd go over like bumps and the bike would just cut out, and it was a short. And I, you know, it would happen every once in a while on the motorcycle, but not often enough to like try to figure out exactly what was going on. And yeah, back in Tanzania, we'd go over, you know, some of the speed bumps, and it would just die. So in the back of my mind, I thought there was maybe a short that I'd have to hunt down. Worst case scenario. Best case scenario is we would get to our destination happily.
Yes.
Our buddy
And it would
Pete
just go away.
is in Loveland
Yeah.
as well, just outside of Denver. And
So we were heading towards him.
Headed towards him.
But before we left Chicago, we had a wonderful surprise visit from our friend who we met in Africa.
Yeah. Emiliano.
Hey.
Hey buddy. Yeah, he made we Emiliano and us and our buddy Leo all were kind of an African crew that now that we're back in the States, all three of us have at one point in time, like we saw Leo saw Emiliano, we saw Emiliano.
We met Emiliano in the coolest of ways. This is how it always happens, right? I mean, sometimes you follow someone online and you meet up purposefully, but we were just at a restaurant in South Africa and we saw his motorcycle there. And he came up to us and was like, "Oh, you guys are on a motorcycle too?" And then we could hear his accent immediately.
Yeah.
And we're like, "Are you American or maybe Canadian?"
Yeah.
And he's American. And so this would happen a lot to us in South America, but in Africa it hadn't happened to us yet. And so it was just such a great experience.
Yeah, we
And
rode along the Wild Coast with him.
yeah.
Back up with them in Namibia, then Botswana.
Yeah, we were just going down the road in Botswana and we saw like this other motorcycle going the other way, and we were like, well, you know, most of the motorcycles in Africa are these small little piki-pikis, they're called, you know, very small CC motorcycles, not big like ours. We saw his and we were like, okay, that looks like an adventure bike. That looks like something more or less that a foreigner might be traveling with. And sure enough, it was Emiliano again.
So good times had just been had.
Emiliano came to Chicago to visit us, which was so cool. He had some business there, and so we were like, well, have you ever seen the city of Chicago? And he hadn't been in a very long time, and we said, well, we'll give you the tour. Yeah. And we walked down the Riverwalk, and we saw all the beautiful buildings, and we went to the lakefront. Yeah. We saw the Bean. We saw Buckingham Fountain. Yeah. It was a fun day.
It was great, indeed. And then we were going to meet up with Emiliano in the future.
He lives in Salt Lake City now.
Yeah,
so we
he
thought,
was on our map. So.
Exactly. So it was a temporary goodbye to Emiliano. And then we packed up our motorcycle, and I was full of high spirits. You know, I was like, oh, we're going to the expo. We're going to Colorado. This is going to be so great. We get to see mountains again, the Rocky Mountains. But Tim had this feeling that something bad was going to happen.
Mystery of if something was in my sleeve is over.
Yeah, you got stung down by something. You felt it go right up your sleeve, didn't you?
And we didn't make it across the Mississippi River.
Yeah, so what happened? We were still in Illinois. We saw the sign for the state of Iowa in the distance, and we were like, yay, you know, coming into a new state. It's always a fun feeling. And there's a beautiful, huge, long bridge that went over the Mississippi River, and I love the Mississippi River. So I was fully excited, you know. We started recording, you know, going over the Mississippi River, and suddenly
the bike died.
Yeah.
In gear. It was on. I got an MTC failure flashing on. The bridge was under construction, so it was 2 ways of traffic. In what you know would have been two lanes, and so I immediately had to pull over while still going up the bridge, and it was just
it wouldn't start.
Like I had tricked like one of my trying to figure out what the problems with the bike were. Like I'd put it on the kickstand or the center stand, and then it would start. And again, going with like my short theory, maybe that was relieving the pressure of wherever the short was.
Yeah.
But that didn't work on the bridge.
It wasn't working, right? And it did start once. Started and you gave it a little bit of gas and it died.
So I took off. I figured if there was a short, it probably had to do with the wiring that I put on the thing. So I took off my PDM, my power distribution module, unplugged that from the main battery, because if any of the wires that went out to my like auxiliary lights or the little weird hookups that I have for the tank bag, charging station and such, that was a variable. So I undid that. Bike was still screwed. Wasn't that.
Yeah.
Then I took off the kickstand dongle that I still had for forever.
Right. We had problems with the kickstand sensor before when we were in Bolivia.
We went and did the Bolivian salt flats, which was amazing and awful all at the same time.
Well, like once I look cool, then you probably look cool too. Well, maybe go a little bit further, then you look cool.
Much before, but still.
Right, we had problems with the kickstand sensor then because salt had corroded it, and so you'd actually created this dongle to bypass it.
The diode of Uni, you call it.
I don't know if it's a dongle, but it's a thingy that bypasses it.
Thingies or dongles.
Yes, that's right.
But so I put that on as a variable, and the bike was still screwed.
Yeah.
And then past that, it was try to hunt down some kind of short, which I wasn't going to do on the middle of a bridge while it was under construction, while semis are...
Yeah, by the way, this was a terrible spot to break down. because first of all, there wasn't really shoulder. There was like in the construction zone, and then the 2 lanes of traffic, you know, 1 lane for each opposing side, and they were barricaded off with concrete barriers. And so even if we'd wanted to turn around, we were kind of going up onto the bridge, so we hadn't even come to the middle of the bridge yet, which was a huge bridge.
Yeah.
But we couldn't turn around because there was a concrete barrier between us and the other side of traffic, and cars are just zooming past. I mean, they are feet away from us, sometimes inches away from us. Huge semis. It was so loud that you tried to call someone.
I just couldn't.
Point in time. They couldn't
there
hear
was
you.
a construction dude, Justin.
Yeah, Justin.
Really cool guy. Had just got off his 8-hour shift. It was noon, so he must have started at however o'clock in the morning. But he threw us a bunch of tiny little baby waters.
Yeah, why were they all drinking these tiny little
A bunch of grown men all need to hydrate by drinking
It's like the smallest
2-ounce bottles
I'd ever
of water
seen.
at a time. Like, oh, that was good. Another one. Oh. But
that was very, very kind of them.
But
it was hot.
Yeah, we parked the bike on the side of the road, and after a half an hour of me messing around with it, not being able to fix anything, and then I hopped in the car with him.
Yeah.
And we went to like a tow place because I needed to get my bike towed off of this bridge. And then my next step was to rent a U-Haul or a Penske truck or something along those lines. And so we get to the tow truck place, and they said, well, if you're stuck in the middle of the bridge, we're going to get the state police involved because we have to block traffic. And it was just awful. And I said, okay, well, we'll push it up the apex and then back down on the other side.
Meanwhile, I'm back at the bridge with the motorcycle, and I didn't quite know what was going on with Tim. All I saw was that he was in the distance. He was going to try to look for a place where we could push the motorcycle to that was a bit better than where it was at. And so he was off in the distance down the bridge. And I see him get in some dude's car. I have no idea who it is. And I'm just like, okay, well, he got a ride with somebody into town, I guess.
Figured out my own problem.
And I was like, bye. Yeah. And then I sat on the bridge for about another 2 hours.
I called U-Haul because I figured, U-Haul, statewide or countrywide, like whatever. It'll be $200, but that will get us to the expo, and then we'll figure out the next step. Mm-hmm. But we're in a small little town apparently that no one drives through ever, and so there's no like U-Haul pickup and drop off system like there is in Chicago or other major cities. Mm-hmm. So it's gonna be like $3,000 to get it to Denver, and it would have been like $1,000 to get it back to Chicago, which wasn't far. And I was like, well, that's
which would have been just the end of all of our plans for the summertime. It was heartbreaking.
Blues.
And as I sat there on the bridge, I was so disheartened. We had just gone through this breakdown of the bearings the week before, and I think we'd done really, really well. I was in positive spirits, and I had been in positive spirits for a very long time, and I think this breakdown on the bridge, it was so loud, and there was so much construction, and all the cars were whizzing by that this like construction dust was just whizzing through the air and hitting me in the face. And it was, I think, 95 degrees out and super humid, and we were in the sun, and I felt like crying. I was like, this is terrible. All of our plans are going down the drain, and I'm just sitting here, and I could not think of a thing to do to remedy this.
We were on our way to Pete's house, and I wanted just to call him to be like, hey man, change of plans. Don't know exactly what we're doing, but we're going to be late. If not, we're not going to be there at all. And he asked what happened. I gave him the cliff notes of our woes. And
you were in town with Justin.
I was in town with Justin. Yeah. After I was like, I'm not going to spend $3,000 to get to the expo. That's just not something that we're in saving money mode. Not, But when I called Pete, he said, "Don't worry about it. I'll come and get you." And I was like, "No. I just wanted to inform you because he's in Denver." Yeah, I mean that's just crazy talk. But he said, "No. I'm putting on my shoes right now as we speak." He talked to his wife, and he said, "I'm already got the trailer attached. Here we go. And it just blew my mind because we had met him back in 2017 or 2019.
2019.
And, you know, just at an expo. And I mean, he's huge into the motorcycle adventure community.
Yeah.
One of the friendliest people that we've ever met in our lives. But, like, I didn't want to take advantage of this guy's hospitality and kindness. So, you know, I have I say no, like 3 times. And then on the 4th time, if they're very insistent, you know, I'm like, damn it. You know, and I was like, I don't know what other options we have.
Yeah.
Now, again, me relying on other people always makes me feel a little bit awkward.
Right, we're supposed to be like these world
Self-sufficient.
motorcycle adventurers,
You know.
yeah, we're
And
self-sufficient on our
broke it down
motorcycle.
2 times. And
we didn't even make it out of Illinois. Like, we were technically in no man's land.
No, we pushed the bike onto the Ohioan.
Oh no,
Iowan
Iowan soil. Iowan.
Iowan soil. Sorry, Buckeye State soil.
That's right.
There we go. But and so we were able to get a tow truck to get to us after the construction site where we pulled over.
You and Justin came. Nice. So tow truck arrived. It's perfect. And the tow truck, you were able to get in contact with the tow truck, and he came shortly after. And with Justin's help, we pushed the motorcycle across the bridge, which, by the way, I don't know if I've mentioned, but it's a long bridge. Thank you so much for all your help.
You guys have a nice trip. Be safe.
Thank you.
Yep.
Justin, right?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. You guys have a good one.
You too. And then we were able to get it onto the tow truck and it brought us to a hotel.
So he towed us to a, little hotel at the end of, the expressway. And Pete had taken off to arrive at...
Which was like, what,
6
10
in the morning.
hours, 11 hours?
11 hours. With stops and all that, even
one
more than
way
that.
to come and get us.
Yeah.
And he did. He came at about 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
Here we are in Iowa. Barely made it over. Across the Mississippi River. But the bike's dead, so. We had stayed in the hotel and he had driven the entire night by himself.
Yeah.
And
Pete the Savior.
Yeah. Absolutely a guardian angel.
Indeed.
And you took over driving after that.
For a little bit, yeah.
He was
the
up
first time
the
I
whole
was in a huge F-150 with a trailer. I don't know what I was doing. I just didn't want to hit anything.
No, you did a great job.
I did an okay job at best. But yeah, so Pete had saved the day.
He really did. And what I really liked about the journey back, of course, we had another 10, 11 hours back to Denver. And he invited us to stay with him in his home, which was so wonderful, even after all of that. But what I really liked about that journey was the time we got to spend talking to him. There's nothing like getting to know someone on a road trip. A road trip is the best way to get to know a person.
You're in the same little capsule, right? You're in a submarine.
Exactly.
And you can't get out except to piss and eat some junk food.
That's right. And
so we got to know each other very well.
It was amazing. It was such wonderful times just talking. By the time we got into Colorado, eastern Colorado is still very much the plains, and there was a lot of storm clouds and beautiful color contrasts with the setting sun as we came to the Rocky Mountains in the distance, and it was a beautiful ride. I do think some of the clouds were possibly smoke from wildfires.
Not clouds of smoke, but some of the hazy and stuff in the distance.
But
we had successfully made it to Colorado thanks to Pete.
Yes.
So thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Pete.
Indeed. So we trailered the bike to Pete's garage, and Pete being as
well connected,
in the motorcycle community, he had a buddy who came over that was much smarter than I with a fluke meter to touch odds and ends and
Yeah, he
try to
was
figure out what a fluke is.
amazing.
When you make a frame together that
I got it because you suggested it. Hold on. What?
I carry
You suggested it, so I got it.
Vaseline. That works too. Because they can't find dielectric grease from chili.
that's the new quick disconnect that will pop right off.
I like it.
So there it is. Yeah.
Oh, you just...
You got gas on you?
Yeah, you just squirted and the camera.
Yeah, so I told him what I assumed it was, and he started at the stator because if it was just a dead battery, I would have never talked to anybody ever again.
We would have never admitted it.
Yes, but it wasn't a dead battery. We started at the stator to see if it was charging the battery, and maybe the battery, because the battery seemed to be holding a charge, but maybe not getting a charge. And the stator was fine, and then we were checking the RR, the regulator rectifier.
Resistor, something.
Yeah, a double R, right? This is how much we know about stuff. And it's the thing that regulates how much voltage goes to the battery so it doesn't like overcharge and such. But when I opened it up, it was like black mud tea.
Yeah.
It had to have been a combination of like South American and African soil mixed in
Right.
with, Floridian monsoon
Humidity,
rain.
Right.
And so, I was just like, well, that's what
That's the
problem.
right there.
And so I felt fairly confident that all of our woes would be over.
Once you fix that.
Yeah, I'm a skeptic dude, so I still felt. I think Marissa asked me how confident I was, and I was like 80% because there's always something funky. But
the bike was working perfectly fine after that, and in our next episode we go to the expo and we finally make it, which was so amazing.
Indeed.
So I hope you stay tuned, and I hope you liked this episode. If you did, please give us a big thumbs up and hit the subscribe button below.
Ding ding.
And we'll be seeing you next time.
Peace, everybody.
Bye.
Stay safe.